All right, here we go. Back at the ORDEV stage. And now I have with me Holly Cummings. Hi, Holly.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you again. Maybe you just introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm a long-time IBMer. I've been doing software development for IBM for 15 years. I've worked in all sorts of different places. I've worked writing the JVM, doing performance for the JVM. I've done performance tools for the JVM. I've worked on WebSphere for a long time, and what I'm doing now is I'm a consultant in the Bluemix garage. So we do customer projects using the sort of the latest and greatest technology, and also design thinking to try and come up with something quite innovative and quite efficiently as well.
Right. Very cool. Yes, I've seen you around for many years. A friendly face. But well, we've both been around for many years, but that's a good and a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. We have lots of experience with the Java community, but I've never interviewed you before, so I'd like to hear, in your words. So you have a really interesting talk here at ORDEV in just a little bit.
Yeah,
Why don't you
I'm
maybe
gonna
tell
be
us a little bit about it? I know you said it's a talk that, you kind of modify and evolve as times change and tools change, but it sounds really intriguing, so maybe tell us a little bit about what you hear there.
The talk title is Confessions of an Automation Addict.
It's very a provocative title.
Yeah, and I think that what's interesting is that the tools we use for automation change as as we have new problems, but the fundamental challenge of automation is still there, and it's how do we balance the time we spend to automate a task against the time that the task was originally taking us. And we can get that balance wrong in two directions. We can just keep sort of goldfish-like doing this task that's really mindless and repetitive, and we could be spending our time on something else instead, but instead, we don't step outside and look back and say, I could be using my time more efficiently.
Right.
And that's bad. But sometimes we get the opposite problem as well, which is as software engineers, we have this really lucky position where we have the tools and the skills to be able to make a lot of these problems go away. And so we go, well, this task is a little bit tedious. I'm going to automate it.
Right.
And then 6 months later, we're still working on maintaining the automation framework that we built, and it's getting this towering stack of features and function and bugs. And we've completely lost sight of the original task that we were trying to do because we're still working on the automation.
Right.
And that's a really easy trap to fall into, and it's one that I've fallen into many times myself. So it's sort of a do as I say, not as I do when it comes to automation.
Right, I've found myself in some of those situations as well. It's hard to keep, the big picture view sometimes when you're working on a problem, even in a team environment. So
yeah, I think it's exactly that big picture that sometimes, it's what you're doing seems to make a lot of sense to you because you just, you solve one problem, you go on to the next problem, you have an ordered list of problems, and it's only when you step back and talk to someone else and they say, what are you working on? And then you explain, and you realize as soon as you explain it that it sounds ridiculous because what you're doing isn't actually adding value.
Right, you're investing all this time, the opportunity cost, and you become invested in it. So in your talk, you're giving some tips on how to kind of be able to pull back away from the situation and know when maybe you can be a little bit more self-aware of those things.
Yeah, exactly. There's sort of some, some guidelines for, well, how do I measure how much it's going to cost? How do I keep that sense of perspective? What are some red flags to look for when I'm doing an automation that let me know that actually I've got too invested and what I'm doing isn't a good idea anymore? And also the other way around as well, so there's rules of thumb for, well, when should I start to automate a problem?
Well, it sounds like a really valuable session to attend, and it's now, starting right now after this interview.
At 6 p.m.
6 p.m., okay, and then afterwards, of course, we have our bright lights shining on us right now. You're seeing, we're going to have some music later, so I'm looking forward to that. What are some of your highlights of ORDEV, though? It's been really interesting for me to see kind of some of the opportunities that they gave to us as speakers, and then the venue, and the people, and the diversity in terms of the topics. I mean, what are some of your...
all of the above. So I mean, it's such a nice venue, and I think we're, again, we're lucky to have such a lovely venue. The talks are so interesting because it's got this broad focus. They're talking about a range of technologies, which is interesting, including some that I don't normally think about, like the more academic side of technology, but then also talking about the more human side of technology as well, and how what we do as technologists affects those around us. And I think that's really interesting to think about.
Definitely, it is. I've definitely appreciated that. I mean, you can kind of see it in the keynote topics that they select as well, really focusing on that human aspect. And of course, me working with the community, I'm very interested in behavior and kind of the soft skills that you can acquire other than the technical skills. So kind of blending that all together to keep yourself relevant and marketable in the developer world. It's really becoming more and more essential. So I'm definitely enjoying the topics. I haven't had a chance to attend too many talks yet, but yeah, I'm definitely having a great time here. So I enjoyed hearing more about what you're doing here this week. I look forward to catching up with you after your talk and checking out some of the music.
Yeah, and I have a second talk as well because I'm speaking
okay.
on
Second talk.
Yeah, I'm speaking on Friday on microservices.
Okay.
And I've got a demo. And I think the interesting thing about microservices is we take something that was a monolith and we turn it into a distributed system, and that has some advantages, but it also has some really big risks that we need to be aware of. And I think sometimes when we approach microservices, we think about the advantages and we forget about the disadvantages. And what I've done in my talk is I've used Raspberry Pis to show how the system is distributed. And as soon as you do that, then you get network card failures. You get one of them stops working. You get one of them you forget to plug in. And then you can really immediately see how the system needs to be able to cope with a failure. So I think that's very useful. The downside for me as a presenter is that I never actually know which thing's going to go wrong, so it's a slightly stressful talk.
So you have a hardware case that you bring with you, and so how many Raspberry Pis are you going to have running?
I've got 5 Raspberry Pis.
5 Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
I was just discussing with Chris, who was up here before, doing a Raspberry Pi class for kids, and all the different parts that can fail when we do, I think, maybe 20 kits at a time. So that could be a challenge to manage 5 of them. So it's live in person.
It is,
check out the failures. You're going to be,
Yeah, check out the failures. The failures are deliberate, even though I look surprised.
The goal is to have some failures. You just don't know which ones you're going to observe.
Exactly.
Observe and learn.
Yeah, but it's to make it more realistic.
Okay. And you take help from the audience.
Yeah.
Okay. An interactive session with Holly on Friday. Okay, well, I'm going to miss that one, but that sounds really exciting. I'll have to catch it at the next conference. I see you, and you have that talk because I'm leaving on Friday morning. I'm going to miss that one, but it sounds very exciting.
Exciting. Exciting.
All right, well, thanks for talking with me.
My pleasure.
All right, talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Okay.